Let's continue with our discussion of keys in Cassandra from the perspective of data modeling. We've already seen how the primary key in Cassandra is divided into two logical subsections, the partition key and the clustering key. The primary key is hashed using the partitioner. The resulting hash value is called the token and is mapped to a token range in order to determine what partition this row will reside on. The clustering key is then used to sort all values which have the same value for the partition key on that partition. With this context in mind, let's come back to our example. We have a table in which we have a primary key with three attributes or columns: city, name, and ID. The partition key is city, the clustering key is name, ID. In this example, the partition key is city, so that column is going to determine what partition the row will be stored in. Here, the clustering key consists of two attributes, name and ID, and so that combination will determine the storage within a partition. The sorting will be on the basis of name first and then ID, so all rows which have the same name but different IDs will appear together with the IDs in sorted order. That means that if you have two rows which have the same city and the same name, they are going to be contiguous. However, if we have two rows which have different names but the same ID, they will not be contiguous even if they have the same value for city. This is important, so let's make sure that we understand it. Partitioning will occur on the basis of the city column. So rows which have the same value of city will end up in the same partition. At this point, you might be wondering, is it possible for two cities to have different values but still end up in the same partition? Well, technically this is possible because there's no guarantee that different values will yield unique tokens when hashed with our partitioner. But in general, you can be pretty confident that if we have two different city names, it's very, very unlikely that they will end up in the same partition. So this is very, very unlikely, but it's not impossible. Next, let's come to the clustering key columns. There are two, name and ID, and as we've already discussed, these are going to set the order of rows within a partition. So given rows which have the same value of city, they are going to be sorted by the clustering key. This will happen in order, so first by the column name and then by the column ID. The value of the second clustering key column here, which is ID, will only come into play for two rows which have the same value of city and name. Otherwise, this doesn't really matter. For the data that we currently have on screen, you can see that